Hello, today we're going to be stacking those little squares inside the jig on top of that walnut thin rip. So this is where the rubber meets the road, and so you want to be very careful about this because you really only got one shot to do it upright. So first thing I like to do is do a test run. I like to grab all those little guys in there and make sure that they all fit. Make sure there isn't any little the squares in there that are not going to fit right. There's something wrong. You see one right there, just take it out and throw it away, because you always cut a little extra. And you have to do this to every single one of them to make sure they're okay. If you don't, then you could end up with some bad pattern in there. You don't want to go through all this work and have all this trouble. So test fit the whole lot of them. And see, there's a few in there. See, that first one wasn't quite right, so just chuck them out and make sure you're using good material. This is what it looks like when the test run is completed. You picked out all the bad old maids that didn't work right, and you made sure that they're all pretty close to what you want. So at the same time, this is a good time to measure how much you actually have. And I needed 108 inches of veneer cut off of this, so I'm going to need 4 cuts off this after it's done. And there'll have to be 1/16 inch thick, so I'm going to cut them to 3/32, because I'll have to run them through the planer to make sure both sides are smooth. So now, really important is before we start gluing everything in, you need to use wax paper. If you don't let any glue touch the side of that jig, otherwise all this is for nothing. So cut a sheet of wax paper such that it'll all fit in to the entire jig and have an overflow to make sure that there isn't any glue that's gonna, get from the test article into the jig. Make sure that it all fits nice, snug, and smooth with that thin rip in the jig, and make sure that every little bit of this is protected by wax paper, so there's no risk of any glue getting between your workpiece and the jig. Really important. And then I like to just tape that down to make sure it stays out of the way, and just to be able to verify that it's all covered in wax paper. Note that all this is done with that thin rip in the jig, so make sure that you don't mess this up. Here we start the gluing in of each piece individually, and put some glue on the side that needs glued and on the bottom. Squeeze them in there. It should fit pretty tightly, so you're going to get a nice good fit. But this is pretty tedious work. But it has to be done, and it has to be done quick so the glue doesn't completely set by the time, because you're going to need to put it under compression and get it set in there. So this is where the rubber meets the road as far as this project goes. Here we have them all stuffed in there, and we got them all in, about 27 inches worth of all this little guy sandwiches milled out. So this is after you get them all in there compressed, so they need compression, and it's ready to set overnight. Here I put some tape on some of the areas I thought that might be bending up just a little bit after I put it under compression, so this keeps it all nice and level, and tomorrow we'll take it all off, see how we did, and mill it up.